I grew up in an older home in Florida. I have two brothers and since I was the only girl, I got to have my own room on the second floor, a room that I would end up fearing at night. We lived in this house until we moved when I was 17. I don't remember anything strange happening until I was around 15 to 16. Just the normal, mom asking us kids where we put a glass or a book. Small things that none of us touched. In hindsight, that was probably either the man or the boy. I came home late one night from a football game at my high school. It was around 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock. My younger brother had a friend over and they liked to play pranks on me. When I poked my head in to say hello, I made sure I asked if they wouldn't mess with me that night since I had to get up early for a soccer game. They both agreed and wished me a good night. The way my room was set up at the time was there was the actual main part of the room had my TV, dresser, a couch and coffee table that I would use for my friends staying over or when I was reading. My bed was in a little alcove that used to be a small porch so that my bed was flush with the windows that looked to the backyard. I put my bag on the couch and walked over to the bed to go to sleep. It was the middle of the night when someone knocking on the wooden bed frame woke me up. I thought it was my brother and his friend who were just going to be annoying and run out of the room giggling. I flipped over to yell at them but didn't see my brother. There was a boy about the age of 12 with sandy brown hair that hung to his chin wearing a purple hoodie just smiling at me like a kid who got caught doing something he shouldn't have been. And I could see right through him to the rest of the room. I watched as he slowly faded away, completely terrified until he was gone. I slept on the couch that night with the TV going in the background and I moved my bed to the center of the room after that. The next morning I had almost talked myself out of it, thinking it was a dream or had really been the boys. I asked them the next morning if they had knocked on my bed, but both were sound asleep. My mom had overheard me and said she had seen the boy too. Since that night we started to notice more strange things, but I am positive it wasn't the boy. There was a mean man that I could feel at night in my room. We would hear footsteps walking around upstairs when all of us were in the kitchen, books would fly from the shelves and glasses would be pulled down and break. Our dogs would stand at the bottom of the stairs that led to the second floor and just growl. One of the most eerie things was the smell of cigarette smoke in the downstairs hallway. No one in our family smoked inside, ever. One of the last things that happened before we moved was my brother waking up to see a tall dark figure standing over me while I was sleeping. The entire family at that point had seen or experienced something. The boy was just a kid who wanted to be known, the man was something else. None of us were sad to drive away from that house for the last time. When I was 16 years old, babysitting was an additional source of income, and I was lucky enough to have many families in my area that needed a babysitter. A lady that babysat for quite often asked me one day if I would mind caring for her sister's baby. She mentioned that her sister had a hard time keeping a babysitter. Well, of course I thought it was due to the child. I didn't mind at all. I quickly accepted the job, meaning more income for myself, and she was a super nice lady. However, her husband was a real jerk. He didn't want to be bothered with the baby at all, and he was always in a mood. For the most part he was away a lot. My first day, she made a point to tell me that the house was quirky, making a lot of strange noises, and when she told me to call her if I had any problems. I thought it was strange, but dismissed it as just being because she was nervous to leave her baby with a new sitter. My first week was really uneventful, a few weird noises, but I just dismissed them. One distinctive thing that I remember about the house was that it was always dark. Even on the brightest day, it was always really dark. During the day, you still had to have the lights on, even with the curtains open. The baby, who was only 6 months old, had a cute rainbow nightlight. It was an older one that you manually had to use some force to click on and off. Once it lightened up some in the morning, I would go and turn off the nightlight. Well, morning came and I turned off the nightlight. I went out to the living room to catch up on some homework, and as soon as I got settled the baby started screaming. I rushed into his room. He was hysterical and the nightlight was on. I know for a fact that I turned it off. It wasn't a mistake or something I thought I did. I played it in my mind over and over and over again. I know that I turned that light off. I took the baby and comforted him. I was so disoriented and scared I didn't even try to turn it off again. I thought if something wants it on, it can be on. I didn't tell the mother about the nightlight. Every day, she would come and ask me if everything was okay. And I knew she wasn't just talking about her son. Over the next few weeks, the experiences came more and more often. Lights turning on and off and doors closing by themselves. All of the events finally came to a peak. I was in the kitchen mixing oatmeal for the baby when from behind something tugged the bottom hem of my shirt and hard. It was so hard that my shirt tightened around my neck. I turned around and no one was there. I screamed and ran into the living room where the baby stared at me from his high chair like I was crazy. I didn't tell his mother about this either. I don't know why I didn't tell her. Maybe I was scared that she would think I was crazy, or maybe I just didn't want to bother her with it, or maybe I was just scared since I never told anyone. Finally, she and her husband moved out of the house that fall, making their stay only 10 months. I was the only babysitter who managed to be permanent during their time. I never discussed the events that happened there later. I did some research on the area. It's incredibly rural and as souther as you can get. It also has a rich history in Indian tribes. While looking up the house, I discovered that during its construction, evidence of a full Indian burial site had been discovered. When Jez was 16 or 17, he had just moved into the new house with his mother and sister. He had the bedroom in the basement. About a month after moving in, he started noticing bizarre things. Hangers would sway as though there was a wind, and he often heard light, unexplainable knocks in the middle of the night. It was creepy enough to make him move all of his belongings to the spare upstairs bedroom. One day, while he played video games in the basement, a white mist shot out from behind their television, up the wall and across the ceiling. He bolted out from the basement and told his mom, who told him it was just his imagination. Over the next few months, he started hearing knocks and seeing objects move again. Slowly, it started getting stronger. Then whispers started, then painful screams. Soon, it was happening every night without fail. One night, he was left alone while his mother was away for business and his sister slept at a friend's. It was 1 a.m. and very little was happening paranormally speaking. He was about to fall asleep when he heard a loud shriek of his name. He slept the rest of the night with the lights on. The next few months passed with only minor incidents, but then things really got crazy. Late one night, he was watching television in his room when his bed started shaking. At first, it was only a small tremor, so he ignored it. Then, he began feeling something pulling at the covers from the foot of his bed. A cold hand grabbed his ankle and tried dragging him. He screamed, and his mom and sister came running. At that point, it was clear something very weird was going on. His mother called the people who sold them the house and told them what happened. The former owners, although offering no reason for the intrusions, had their priest come to bless the house. The occurrences never fully stopped, but they did become much less frequent and intrusive after the blessing. One night, Heard was at a friend's house. She was downstairs watching a movie, and the friend was upstairs playing video games. Feeling neglected, she fell asleep despite feeling deeply uncomfortable, like she was being watched. She went back to sleep after asking her friend if he'd be coming to bed soon. When she woke again, it was to someone touching her face, saying, "Don't worry, love, I'll be down soon." She disregarded it as a dream and went back to sleep. Then she was awoken again by the same voice saying, I know, I keep using this excuse, I'm coming soon. I really do miss you." This time, she knew something wasn't right. She got out of bed and searched the entire downstairs area, but found nothing. She heard snoring upstairs and knew her friend was sound asleep. Since it was now 7 in the morning, she got ready and left for work. The next time they were together, she asked her friend if he'd been messing with her that night. He said no, but at that moment, a song came on the car radio that sounded exactly like the voice. She asked who the singer was, and he said it was his best friend's band. His best friend had been the lead singer, but had committed suicide a year before. They'd lived together for a while, and most of his stuff was still in the house. It appears that at least his dead ghost friend hadn't wanted her to be alone. One day, Penning wasn't feeling well, so they stayed home from work. They were in bed, asleep on their back with a pillow over their face, when they heard their door open. They were still half asleep, so they didn't fully register the door being opened. Then, they felt a pressure on their stomach like someone was poking them with 2 or 3 fingers. They jumped and heard the sound of retreating footsteps, but the pillow was still over their head, so they couldn't see who or what it was. The footsteps sounded more like a light pitter-patter than actual human footsteps. Assuming it was their mother home from lunch break, they at first thought nothing of it. Checking their phone, they saw it was only 10 a.m., much too early for their mom to be home. As they were sitting in bed, exactly what had happened began to settle in, and they started getting really nervous. Suddenly, the door opened. They ran from their room through a different door that leads outside and called their mother. She came home, and they looked through the house together. While they were looking, the door handle to a closet started to jiggle violently, freaking both of them out. That night, the two told the writer's stepfather, who at first didn't believe them. He only started to after weird things started happening all over the house, pans flying across the kitchen, stuff randomly falling from the walls, and the new cat freaking out for no apparent reason.